So picture a nation, right? You're riding this gleaming 200-mile-per-hour high-speed train.
Oh, the Alborak, yeah.
Exactly, zooming past these massive futuristic solar farms that literally just stretch to the horizon.
Right.
But then you realize that the average adult woman looking out the window of that very train has, well, less than a sixth-grade education.
Yeah, it's a really jarring image.
It is. So welcome to the deep dive. Today we're opening up the dossier on Morocco.
And specifically, we are analyzing this really comprehensive 30-year data set.
Right. It's called Morocco's Multidimensional Human Development Deep Dive, covering 1990 to 2023.
It's quite the read.
Oh, definitely. And look, our mission here is to figure out this massive paradox.
The growth paradox.
Right. How does a country skyrocket in wealth, add over a decade to its citizens' lifespans, build this deeply modern economy, and yet
they're somehow tripping over their own shoelaces in the global marathon for gender equality.
Yes. Because according to the data, Morocco ranks a dismal 179th out of 194 countries on the Gender Development Index.
Which is honestly just a staggering structural contradiction.
It's wild.
You rarely see a nation achieve these middle to high tiers in macroeconomic and environmental metrics while simultaneously sitting in the absolute lowest global tier group 5, specifically for gender development.
Yeah, it's like a totally lopsided reality.
It really forces us to ask, what development actually means if it leaves literally half the population behind.
Okay, let's unpack this. If we look at the dashboard for 2023, Morocco sits in the medium human development tier.
Right, their Human Development Index, HDI, is 0.710.
Right. And, if you're hearing that and wondering what a 0.710 actually translates to in the real world.
Like, practically speaking.
Exactly. A 1.0 would be this perfect utopian society. Everyone's wealthy, highly educated, lives to be 100.
Basically impossible.
Right, exactly. So a score of 0.710 means Morocco has solidly transitioned out of that low development category.
Yeah, they're making real moves.
But the undercurrent here, and this is the theme we are going to just keep bumping into, is this high growth, low equity paradox.
Yes. And to really build on that, we need to look at what the HDI actually measures.
Right.
Because it was created decades ago to push back against the idea that a country's success is just its GDP.
Right. It's not just about cash.
Exactly. It combines life expectancy, education, and per capita income into one single number.
So hitting a 0.710 is a genuine achievement.
It's huge.
Yeah.
But that low equity shadow you mentioned, that's the critical flaw in the architecture here.
Because it hides the reality on the ground.
Exactly. A high national average often just means the fruits of this incredible generational national effort are pooling in very specific demographics.
Oh, I see.
Right, rather than irrigating the entire society.
Man, so whether you are an economics student mapping out global markets, a policymaker, or just insanely curious about how nations actually evolve in real time.
Which is why we're all here.
Right. This deep dive is going to completely reframe how you look at progress.
Because we tend to think of progress as a rising tide that lifts all boats.
But the data we're looking at today shows that progress can be an incredibly selective force.
Yeah, it really can.
Sometimes it's a line that goes straight up for half the population and entirely flatlines for the other half.
But, to fully grasp the severity of that flat line, we first have to map out the sheer scale of the economic and public health miracle that Morocco has engineered since 1990.
Right, you can't understand the failure without first understanding the triumph.
Exactly.
So let's look at the macro leap. The data set shows Morocco essentially chasing down the world average.
Sprinting toward it, really.
Yeah. Back in 1990, Morocco's HDI was sitting at a mere 0.451.
And for some geographic context for you listening, an HDI in the 0.4 range today is equivalent to nations experiencing active state collapse.
Wow, or severe systemic poverty.
Right. It means pervasive illiteracy, high infant mortality, largely agrarian subsistence.
But you fast forward to 2023, and that number has climbed to 0.710.
Which is a 57.4% growth rate.
That's insane.
And the context of the rest of the planet makes that number even more vital, honestly.
How so?
Well, over that exact same 30-year window, the global average HDI only grew by 24.3%.
Wait, really? So Morocco didn't just grow along with the natural progression of tech and global trade?
Nope. They grew at more than double the speed of the global average.
It really is a sprint, and I want to look at the human reality behind that 57% jump.
Yeah, let's get into the human side.
The crown jewel of this progress, according to the report, is life expectancy.
It's arguably their best metric.
Right. In 1990, the average Moroccan lived to 62.4 years. By 2023, that jumped to 75.3
A
years.
massive leap.
And women specifically are now living to 77.6 years, which actually surpasses the current global average of 73.4.
Right. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, adding 13 years of life expectancy to an entire population in just 3 decades is an undeniably massive logistical and systemic triumph.
Okay, but let me push back on that word triumph for a second. Because if you're a skeptic looking at this, you might ask, is adding 13 years to a life inherently a triumph if the economic foundation is still shaky?
Oh, right.
Like, are they just living longer in poverty? What actually causes a 13-year leap in 3 decades?
That is the exact right question to ask. Because a 13-year leap doesn't just happen by accident.
Right.
And it doesn't happen just by building a few state-of-the-art hospitals in Rabat or Casablanca.
You need more than a few good hospitals for the national average to move.
Exactly. You only move the needle that drastically by overhauling the base layer of survival for millions of people.
Okay, so what does that look like on the ground?
It means you built rural electrification grids so that remote clinics can finally refrigerate vaccines.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It means you paved roads so a woman in obstructed labor can reach a surgeon in time.
That makes total sense.
It means vast improvements in municipal sanitation and clean drinking water, which virtually eliminates the waterborne diseases that used to kill children before their 5th birthdays.
Right, because when infant mortality plummets, the mathematical average of life expectancy naturally skyrockets.
Exactly. So yes, living longer in poverty is a valid concern, but the mechanisms required to extend that life, the electricity, the roads, the sanitation, are the exact same mechanisms that lift people out of absolute poverty.
Okay, that makes sense. The infrastructure of survival has been built. Living longer is fantastic.
It is.
But the data immediately forces us into the next phase of the problem. What are people actually doing with those extra 13 years?
Yeah, how do they spend them?
Right. How are they preparing to participate in this gleaming new modern economy? And that leads us to the first major structural bottleneck.
Education. The transition from just surviving to actually thriving.
Here's where it gets really interesting. When we look at the education data, we are confronted with this dual reality.
The split metric.
Right. The data set splits education into 2 metrics. First, expected years of schooling, or EYS.
Which projects how many years of education a 5-year-old entering the school system today will eventually complete.
Exactly. And second, mean years of schooling, or MYS, which measures the actual historical average years of education for adults over 25 currently in the workforce.
And the chasm between those two numbers is one of the defining features of the Moroccan economy today.
It's wild. So the expected years of schooling for children today is 15.1 years.
Which is phenomenal.
It really is. It means a child starting kindergarten today is statistically expected to make it through high school and spend years in university or advanced vocational training.
Right.
But then we look at the adults. The mean years of schooling for the adult workforce, basically everyone over 25 is currently 6.2 years.
Yeah. A 6.2-year average means the bulk of the adult population driving the economy today possesses roughly a 6th grade education.
I look at this as a massive stock versus flow problem.
Oh, I like that. Explain that.
Well, think of the workforce like a reservoir. The flow is the new water coming in, the new generation of students receiving 15 years of schooling. That flow is a raging river of highly skilled potential. But the stock is the water already sitting in the reservoir, the current adult workforce.
And that stock is incredibly shallow.
Exactly.
And the friction that creates in a rapidly developing economy is just immense.
Because they're trying to do so much at once.
Yeah, you have a government trying to attract international aerospace manufacturing, massive renewable energy projects, tech hubs.
Right.
But you cannot run a cutting-edge 21st century industrial policy on a workforce that struggles to read complex technical manuals.
Or perform the algebra required for advanced logistics.
Exactly.
You essentially have an unfunded mandate. The economy is demanding skills the adults simply were never given.
Furthermore, a nation cannot simply hit pause on global competition for 20 years while they wait for the 5-year-olds to grow up and replace the current workforce.
Right. You can't just tell the world, hey, check back with us in 2045.
Exactly. To drive immediate high-level economic growth today, you need the adults today. This massive stock gap means the foundation of the current economy is pretty fragile.
But it's not just an absolute lack of education overall. The plot thickens when we look at how unevenly that education, along with health and wealth, is distributed across the country.
The inequality factor.
Right. We have to figure out how much of Morocco's shiny 0.710 HDI is actually just a statistical mirage hiding massive systemic inequality.
Because averages are notoriously deceptive.
Yeah. Like if I have $1 million and you have zero, on average, we both have $500,000.
Exactly. The average looks great on paper, but my daily reality is complete deprivation.
And the researchers behind this data set know that, which is why they include a metric called the inequality-adjusted HDI, or the IHDI.
Right.
Think of the IHDI as a penalty, or like a frictional drag applied to the raw score. When we apply the inequality penalty to Morocco, their HDI drops drastically from 0.710 down to 0.517.
Wow, that is a severe macroeconomic haircut.
It really is. It represents a 27.2% overall loss in human development, purely due to inequality.
And to put that in perspective for you, the global average loss due to inequality is about 22%.
Oh, so they're well above the average loss.
Right. Morocco is losing significantly more of its potential to internal disparities than the rest of the world.
And the data pinpoints the exact culprit. It's not just, income hoarding by the ultra-rich. Education inequality alone contributes to 41.9% of this total developmental loss.
Which brings us right back to the stock and flow problem, but now we see it has this harsh geographic and social geography to it.
Wait, I need to stop you there.
Sure.
If the new generation is getting 15 years of expected schooling, if the flow of new students is so strong, why is the inequality penalty still dragging the entire country down so heavily in 2023?
That's a great point.
Like, shouldn't that 15-year expectation be smoothing out the national average?
I'd argue it's actually exacerbating the divide in the short term.
Wait, really? How?
Well, high expectations don't erase present-day structural deficits. They often just mask them.
Okay.
If we look at the coefficient of human inequality in the raw CSV data, it reveals that a 15-year national average for a child doesn't mean every single child is sitting in a classroom for 15 years.
Oh, so it's the millionaire average problem again?
Precisely. It often means a child in an affluent urban center like Rabat or Casablanca might receive 18 or 19 years of elite private education.
Maybe finishing with a master's degree in Europe.
Exactly. Meanwhile, a child in a remote agrarian village in the Atlas Mountains might still only get 4 or 5 years before they are pulled out of school.
Why? Just lack of access?
Yeah, because the nearest secondary school is a 2-hour walk away, or because their labor is needed on the family farm.
Wow.
So the urban top end is pulling the national average up to 15 years, masking the fact that the rural bottom end is still completely stuck in the 20th century.
Man. So education in this scenario isn't acting as the great equalizer. It's actually acting as an active tax, slowing down the entire nation's potential. When nearly 42% of your human development loss comes from educational inequality, it means your economy is trying to drive down the highway with the parking brake permanently engaged.
And that leads to the most critical diagnostic question of this entire report. Who exactly is the parking brake being applied to?
Right. And that brings us to the most shocking numbers in the entire 30-year data set, the deep systemic gender chasm.
This is where the paradox fully reveals itself. This is that 179th place ranking.
Let's lay out the grim reality of the Gender Development Index, the GDI. As we mentioned, Morocco has a GDI value of 0.59.
Right.
This places it in Group 5, which is the absolute lowest tier of human development globally. The global average for GDI sits at roughly 0.955.
That's a massive gap.
It is. Because of this shortfall, Morocco ranks 179th out of 194 countries.
And look, if you look at the other nations hovering around the 170s and 180s on that list, you are typically looking at countries experiencing active, devastating civil wars.
Or just complete state collapse.
Exactly. Morocco is a stable, modernizing, peaceful nation with a growing middle class. To see them ranked alongside collapsed states in this one specific metric is a blaring alarm bell.
It's totally jarring.
Yeah.
And when you dig into the raw data, the absolute shortfalls become glaringly obvious. Let's look at education first.
Okay.
We noted the overall adult average was 6.2 years of schooling, but when you split that by gender, adult men average 7.1 years of schooling, while adult women average only 5.3 years.
Wow.
Now, I do want to highlight the silver lining from the historical data. Back in 1990, women averaged only 1.38 years of schooling.
Which means, functionally, an entire generation of women in 1990 was completely excluded from written language.
Exactly. So moving from 1.38 to 5.3 years is a massive logistical undertaking.
Yes, the progress is real, absolutely.
Yeah.
But 5.3 years is still not even completing primary school.
Right.
It's not nearly enough to compete in a modern workforce that requires digital literacy.
And that lack of education bleeds directly into the next and perhaps most devastating data point.
Income.
The economic reality. Here we go. The gross national income, or GNI, per capita for women in Morocco is a paltry $3,220.
Uh-huh.
The GNI per capita for men is a massive $13,990. Men are out-earning women by a ratio of 4.3 to 1.
The ratio of 4.3 to 1 is not just an income gap, it is a different economic universe.
Right. I want you to visualize this. Imagine two parallel Moroccan economies operating in the exact same physical space.
Okay.
One is a modern, thriving marketplace for men, where people are earning nearly $14,000 a year, securing mortgages, buying cars, investing in small businesses.
Sounds great.
Yeah. But the other is a shadow economy, a fraction of the size, where women are financially sidelined, scraping by on just over $3,000 a year.
It's staggering when you put it like that.
But here is the kicker. They're shopping at the same grocery stores, paying the same utility rates, and buying the same fuel.
Right.
But the women are operating with less than a quarter of the purchasing power.
It's a phenomenal way to visualize it. And if we look at the mechanics of that, it perfectly explains the high growth, low equity paradox we started with. Well, what's fascinating here is how HDI masks this reality. A country can artificially pump up its overall HDI score through intense male economic dominance and broad public health improvements.
Oh, I see.
Development economists actually refer to this as a lopsided or limping development model.
Think of it like trying to run a cutting-edge smartphone on a battery that is permanently capped at 20%.
Yes, exactly.
The processor might be state-of-the-art, the screen might be OLED, but if the battery is starved, the phone is eventually going to shut down.
And the brutal macroeconomic truth is this. An economy simply cannot reach high-income developed status while actively ignoring or suppressing half of its human capital.
You just don't have the fuel.
Right. You cannot generate the domestic consumer demand, the entrepreneurial innovation, or the tax revenue required to maintain modern infrastructure when 50% of your population is earning $3,000 a year.
So hearing these dismal economic and educational numbers for women, the 5.3 years of school, the 4.3 to 1 income gap, you would naturally assume that women have absolutely no voice in Moroccan society.
That would be the logical conclusion.
Right. You'd assume they are completely shut out of the public sphere and have zero political power. But the data reveals something incredibly counterintuitive.
The twist.
And this leads us to the empowerment paradox.
Yeah, this specific section of the data challenges every basic assumption we have about how societal empowerment actually works in practice.
So we have another index, the Gender Inequality Index, or GII. This measures things like reproductive health, empowerment, and the labor market.
Right.
And unlike the GDI, where Morocco is failing miserably, in the GII, Morocco has actually improved dramatically.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. In 1990, their GII score was 0.749, which is near the global bottom. Today, it has improved to 0.438.
Which is a massive structural improvement on paper.
How did they do it? Huge, undeniable wins in health and politics. Let's look at the health win first, maternal mortality.
Okay.
In 1990, 460 women died per 100,000 live births. Today, that number has plummeted to 72.
We really have to pause and respect that number.
It's amazing.
460 deaths per 100,000 births is a catastrophe. It means that for a woman in 1990, childbirth was a highly lethal endeavor.
Terrifying.
Bringing that down to 72 means hundreds of thousands of mothers survive to raise their children. It requires vast networks of prenatal care, trained midwives, emergency surgical access.
It's a monumental achievement.
Truly.
And then we look at political empowerment. Even more shockingly, women's share of parliamentary seats in Morocco rocketed from just 0.6% in 1990 to 21.4% today.
21.4%.
Yeah. Over 1 in 5 lawmakers at the national level is a woman.
That's a higher percentage than many fully developed Western nations have achieved.
Right. But here comes the paradox. Despite the health wins, despite making up over 20% of the national parliament, the female labor force participation rate The LFPR is hovering at an abysmal 19.8%.
Wow.
Compare that to the male LFPR, which is 69.6%.
The contrast there is almost unbelievable.
Wait, I need to make sure I'm reading this correctly.
Yeah.
Are you telling me that it is statistically more likely for a Moroccan woman to get elected to the national parliament than it is for her to just go out and get a regular mainstream job in the workforce?
Statistically, yes.
That's insane.
21.4% in parliament, 19.8% in the workforce. And that bizarre statistic highlights the fundamental difference between top-down political mandates and bottom-up structural realities.
Okay, break down this top-down versus bottom-up friction for me. Because if women are literally writing the laws, why aren't they in the factories and the offices?
This raises an important question about how change actually happens, because top-down changes are relatively cheap legislative fixes.
What do you mean by cheap?
If a government decides they want to improve their international standing and modernize their image, they can institute gender quotas for their parliament.
Just a rule change.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They pass a law mandating that a certain percentage of candidate lists must be female. Overnight, the parliament changes.
Wow.
It's a stroke of the pen mandate. And to be clear, it's highly valuable. It provides crucial representation.
Right. I'm sure it matters a lot.
It does. But a quota in the capital city doesn't alter the bottom-up structural barriers that a woman in a peri-urban neighborhood faces every single morning.
You're talking about the daily friction of actually having a job.
Yes. A parliamentary quota doesn't build a safe, reliable bus route for her to commute to a textile factory without facing harassment.
Right.
A quota doesn't provide subsidized, high-quality childcare so she can safely leave her toddlers.
It doesn't fix the day-to-day logistics.
Exactly. A quota doesn't change deeply ingrained agrarian cultural norms that dictate a woman's primary value is in unpaid domestic labor.
Yeah, culture changes a lot slower than laws do.
And crucially, tying it back to our earlier point, a quota in parliament doesn't magically retroactively give her the high school diploma she needs to get hired in a modern office.
Because, as we know, she currently averages only 5.3 years of schooling.
Exactly.
So the top-down laws fix the optics of the parliament, but the cultural and infrastructural bottlenecks keep the daily workplace completely inaccessible.
It's what labor economists call the missing women phenomenon.
Missing women?
Yeah. They are surviving childbirth. They are seeing female politicians on television debating national security, but they cannot secure a paycheck.
And when women cannot secure a paycheck, they are entirely dependent on the male $13,990 economy.
Right. And when they lack financial independence, they have drastically less bargaining power within their own households.
Which affects everything.
It really does.
Yeah.
It impacts how family resources are allocated, nutritional choices, and how much money is spent on the children's education.
Which brings us to a really uncomfortable cascading reality.
Yeah.
This lack of access to the economy and education doesn't just hold women back as individuals, it actively pushes entire families into systemic poverty.
It's a generational trap.
And I want to be clear, we are not just talking about the empty wallet kind of poverty. Let's look at what poverty actually feels like in Morocco today, through the lens of the Multidimensional Poverty Index, or the MPI.
The MPI is a brilliant diagnostic tool because it recognizes that poverty isn't just a lack of cash.
Right.
Cash is just a symptom. Poverty is the lived experience of multiple simultaneous deprivations hitting a family all at once.
According to the dataset, Morocco's MPI stands at 0.027 with an overall multidimensional poverty rate of 6.4%.
Okay.
So roughly 6.4% of the population is living in acute layered poverty. But the data lets us look under the hood of that 6.4% to see exactly what is trapping them.
Let's see it.
The researchers broke down the specific contributions to this poverty. A lack of years of schooling contributes a massive 31.0% to the nation's poverty.
Wow.
Poor nutrition contributes 21.0%, and inadequate housing contributes 8.0%.
So over half of all the acute poverty in the entire country is driven entirely by a lack of schooling and a lack of proper food.
It perfectly illustrates that poverty is a web. If you don't have schooling, you can't read the manual for modern agricultural equipment.
Or understand a complex loan document from a bank to expand your farm.
Right, and if you don't have proper nutrition, your children's cognitive development is physically stunted.
Which means they literally cannot focus in the schooling they do manage to get.
And if we connect the dots, all of our previous threads intersect right here, inside the walls of the family home.
Yeah, in a traditional Moroccan household, who is the primary caregiver, the mother,
Right.
who is largely responsible for the day-to-day nutritional choices, food preparation, and early childhood development. The mother.
Oh.
So if the average mother only has 5.3 years of schooling, she is at a severe disadvantage in understanding modern nutritional science.
Or even just navigating complex bureaucratic healthcare systems.
Exactly. Or actively tutoring her children to ensure they succeed in secondary school.
The educational deficit of the mother feeds directly into the nutritional and educational deficits of the next generation.
It's a self-replicating loop.
It's almost like the inequality tax we talked about earlier isn't just a tax on the current GDP. It's a tax levied directly on the future.
It absolutely is. When
Yeah.
you structurally marginalize half your population, you don't just lose their labor output today, you compromise the cognitive and physical development of the entire next generation.
Man. So, we've spent a lot of time looking inward, dissecting the structural struggles, the deep inequalities, and the gender chasms inside Morocco's borders.
Yeah.
And frankly, it paints a picture of a country that is struggling under the weight of its own internal contradictions.
Very true.
But here is where the data pulls complete 180.
Oh, I love this part.
When we zoom out and look at Morocco's interaction with the rest of the planet, the script completely flips.
This is where Morocco goes from being a cautionary tale about gender equity to becoming an elite global exemplar.
Let's talk about the green champion.
Okay.
We have an index called the PHDI. This stands for the Planetary Pressures Adjusted Human Development Index.
That's a mouthful.
It is. But basically, it takes a country's regular HDI and adjusts it based on two things: how much carbon dioxide they emit per capita and their material footprint.
Basically, how many natural resources they consume.
Right. It asks a profound question. Are you achieving your high standard of living by destroying the Earth?
And it's arguably the most crucial metric for the 21st century.
Why do you say that?
Well, high HDI scores in the West, in Europe, and North America were largely built on 2 centuries of unrestricted, catastrophic carbon pollution.
Oh, right. We industrialized dirty.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The PHDI holds those countries accountable for that historical and current damage.
So what does this actually mean for Morocco? When you adjust for environmental impact, the global average HDI drops by 10.1%.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, most developed, wealthy countries take a massive hit on this index because they are heavy polluters. But Morocco's index, it only loses 4.4%.
They lose less than half of what the rest of the world loses.
It's incredible. And let's look at the physical carbon footprint to see why. Morocco's per capita CO2 emission is a mere 1.815 tons per person per year. Yes, it's up slightly from 0.907 tons in 1990, but 1.8 tons is incredibly low for a rapidly developing middle-income country building high-speed trains.
To anchor that 1.8 tons to reality, that is roughly the carbon footprint of just driving a standard gas-powered car for a few months in the United States.
Seriously?
Yeah, that is an American's commute. But for a Moroccan, that 1.8 tons is their entire annual footprint for everything.
Their housing, their transit, their consumption, their share of industry.
All of it. Meanwhile, some fully developed nations are sitting at 15 or 20 tons of CO2 per person.
Because of this incredible green efficiency, when you factor in the health of the planet, Morocco's global ranking doesn't just improve, it leaps.
It jumps up an incredible 39 places.
Right, landing at 81st out of 166 countries on the PHDI.
It completely reorders the global hierarchy.
If you're listening to this, I want you to imagine an alternate reality for a second. Imagine a world where nations are judged and ranked. Not just by how fast their GDP grows, not just by how much wealth they hoard, but by how little they destroy the earth in the process of achieving that wealth.
Under those rules, Morocco is suddenly an elite competitor.
They truly are.
What we are seeing here is the successful, real-world implementation of green development.
Okay, expand on that.
For decades, the standard historical narrative was that a country had to industrialize dirty.
Right, like we were just saying.
You had to burn massive amounts of coal and oil, pollute your air, destroy your rivers, and then, once your population got rich, you could use that wealth to afford to clean up the mess.
Which is a terrible model.
It is. But Morocco is proving that this is a false binary. They have proven that a country can achieve a 57% leap in human development, they can add 13 years of life expectancy, and they can do it without relying on carbon-spewing industrialization.
And they are doing it through massive, tangible infrastructure projects.
Oh, absolutely.
They've built the Noor Ouarzazate solar complex on the edge of the Sahara, which is one of the largest concentrated solar power plants on Earth.
It's massive.
They are investing heavily in wind. They are creating a low-carbon, long-life economic model.
It's a model that many developing nations in the global south are looking at very closely because it proves you can decouple human development from environmental destruction.
So it's time to pull all these disparate coordinates together.
Let's do it.
We've looked at the green triumphs, the health miracles, the gaping gender disparities, and the educational bottlenecks. We need to paint the true, comprehensive portrait of Morocco as it stands in 2023.
If we plot Morocco on a global coordinate system based on this 30-year data set, we see a country uniquely suspended between three very different realities.
Okay.
First, they are leading the pack in green sustainability, punching way above their weight class on the PHDI.
Right.
Second, they are sitting firmly and comfortably in the middle of the pack for overall human development, achieving solid middle-income status on the standard HDI.
But third, and most critically, they are lagging severely behind, anchored to the bottom of the global rankings, in gender equality on the GDI.
Exactly. So how do they move forward? How does a nation transition from medium human development to high human development?
What does the data say?
Based on the data, the roadmap requires three essential pillars.
Let's lay out the roadmap.
Pillar 1, educational equity. They have to erase the absolute shortfall in adult education.
Specifically, the fact that women currently average only 5.3 years of schooling.
Right. The expected years of schooling for children is high, which is great for the future, but they need massive, aggressive adult education and vocational programs now to upgrade the stock of their current workforce.
You cannot run a tech economy on a fifth-grade education.
Exactly. Pillar 2, economic activation. They have to unlock the missing female labor force.
Because you cannot have 21% of your parliament be women, while only 19.8% of your women are in the workforce.
Exactly. They need to address the bottom-up structural barriers, building safe transportation, providing subsidized childcare, addressing workplace bias, to bring female labor participation up to par with the male rate of 69%.
Right now, they are leaving half their economic potential on the table, and they are taxing their own future by keeping mothers in poverty.
And Pillar 3, maintain the green advantage. As they activate this new labor force and boost their GDP, they must continue to grow the economy without increasing their PHDI loss rate.
They must ensure that the new factories, the new offices, and the new infrastructure remain low carbon.
Because if they lose their green efficiency while trying to grow, they're just repeating the destructive mistakes of the 20th century.
It's a delicate balancing act, but the data shows they have the foundation to do it.
They absolutely do.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this thought. True national prosperity, the kind that makes a country genuinely resilient and thriving, isn't just a line graph going up on a chart.
No, it's not.
It is the shared experience of all citizens. It's when the 13 extra years of life are actually filled with opportunity, regardless of your gender or what remote mountain village you were born in.
Because knowledge is most valuable when we can synthesize it and apply it.
Right.
Looking at Morocco teaches us that progress is deeply multidimensional. We can celebrate the staggering drop in maternal mortality and the rise in renewable energy while remaining highly critical of a 4.3 to 1 income gap.
Both realities exist in the same space.
Yeah.
As you go about your day, think about this final provocative thought. We live in an era where artificial intelligence, automation, and remote work are redefining global borders and labor overnight.
The nature of work is changing fast.
What happens to the global economy when a country like Morocco finally figures out how to plug in the untapped 20% battery potential of half its population?
It would be explosive growth.
If Morocco can bridge the gap between the women leading its parliament and the women missing from its workforce,
They won't just catch up.
no,
Yeah.
they might just outpace the rest of the world.
Definitely something to think about.
Keep questioning the numbers, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.